GM, thanks to the people who are here this morning. I really appreciate you making it out 9 a.m. Friday, maybe a little bit of side events before this. My talk today is on NFT ticketing, and I'm titled the talk Honeypot or Tarpit. Basically, is NFT ticketing a good idea or a terrible one? And in this very short 10-minute spot, I'd hope to point us a little bit closer to the answer to that question. I myself, that was a very good intro. I don't think I need to provide much more context, but I have been in crypto for a little while. The last company I founded does decentralized authentication and identity. Basically, we were trying to solve for this 12 or 24 word seed phrase problem and give you a chance to recover those keys or own your own identity. All this to say, I've been working on tough problems in crypto for a while, and ticketing, while on the surface might seem pretty simple, is actually one of the toughest I've run into in the real world. By my definition, NFTs, I might ask the few people in the room, do you guys collect these things? 100%. Have you ever used an NFT ticket? So both of those touch points. For me, it's just a simple combination, more robust digital scarcity. We've had digital scarcity for a while, and something that you can actually own. And when we look at the use cases for NFTs, I think we've only seen product market fit in a couple of categories. One is this culture proxy or casino that is PFPs. The second is high-value digital art on-chain, which still has held up pretty resiliently. And I like to separate gen art out because it's really a big unlock to be able to be the creator and at the same time the owner and collector together with the artist. But one of the things that's talked about the most in NFTs is the subject of utility, where I think practically we've seen zero product market fit in the real world. So most talked about category with the least amount of real world proof. And NFT ticketing has been the canonical use case for NFTs that are useful. And I think the reason is the value proposition on the surface is just so obvious and clear. Last year, 23 billion tickets were sold globally. On average, after the primary sale, the people actually making the events will make 0% on secondary sales revenue. So something like a StubHub will take 15% from the seller, additional 10% from the buyer. This gouging, nothing's going back to the people actually making the events, unless Justin Bieber is listing his tickets directly on secondaries, which he's been caught doing. All this to say that if marketplaces are enforcing royalties, there's a chance to deliver value back to creators that they're not seeing, to producers, to venue owners, and I know this is money that they'd like to see. Today, that value goes to brokers and bots, whether professional or semi-professional, who are competing on speed rather than economic value, which is a really poor thing to compete on. So when we look at the NFT ticket, we see a potential 10x for the event producer where they're seeing money on secondary sales. We ourselves have had tickets that have no QR code on them based on a single source of truth. So there's no scalping or fraud to be done in these cases. And there's still many instances of people showing up to venues with fake tickets. I had a chat with John Licorice, who runs Flash Entertainment in Abu Dhabi, and people will regularly sell his tickets on Viagogo. But they don't exist. They're not real tickets, and they show up to the stadium, and he sees zero money and has to deal with that pain at the door. So it's a real issue. And on the attendee side, it's actually a much better ticket. The first thing I like to point out is when the demand is greater than the supply. If you've ever tried to list a ticket on a StubHub or a SeatGeek, it's a pain in the ass, and maybe you have to email a PDF later. But in cases where we've had crypto-native events, I've been able to list a ticket in 2 clicks on Magic Eden or OpenSea, and people will just snap it up. So there's actual liquidity there, even in the crypto space. It's super smooth. But the other side of this is like, if you go downtown to my apartment, we have a shoebox full of tickets, Olympics, Rangers games, things like this, that held the emotional weight of the event for me for many years. And in the intervening, it became some QR code or PDF in your email, a totally emotionless object. And I wanted to just throw this in here in the New York case, because how sad is it that if you had gone and seen the Rangers win, the memento you had today would be some PDF that you never look at again? This ticket is special, and for me, it makes it land a little bit, and we can recreate that in digital space. So if NFT ticketing is so great and obvious, like why don't we see it in the real world? And I like to explain this in terms of the event pyramid, where at the top of the pyramid, we see events with huge demand and value, the Taylor Swifts, Eras tours of the world. These are the events where NFT ticketing shines because it's worth holding on to. The demand is greater than the supply, so the liquidity is important, and the event producers can make money on secondaries. Below that peak of the pyramid, we stop seeing so many secondary sales at all. So most tickets will just sell once. And when we get to the base of the pyramid, the backyard barbecue, NFT ticketing is a harm rather than a help. It's expensive to mint these tickets. It doesn't even make sense. So we see one company, Ticketmaster, that's owned by Live Nation Entertainment, the largest event promoter and producer in the world, which also owns a bunch of the venues. And if they don't own the venues, they have a 3, 5, 7, or 10-year exclusive contract with them. So you don't have access to the supply of ticketing, the inventory that makes the value proposition interesting in the first case. Point number 2, the user experience. When we started ticketing in Web3 events, we assumed that a customer like a DAO was wallet savvy enough to have people show up to an event. DAO-related event, we built a pretty smooth crypto product. It's not the case. There's a small group of crypto-native people who can do this, and there's everybody else who has zero patience for it. And the solution we ended up coming up with is like a custodial web wallet, but this kills the value proposition of NFTs in the first place. And if you've ever tried like a Web3 auth or some intermediate solution, it's not good enough. A normal person still won't use this. Okay, and now main part of the value proposition for the producer, the people who have access to inventory, is that they'd be making money on secondaries. But as we've seen, the first level you're going to use as a marketplace to compete is you're going to take away those secondary royalties. And then you might airdrop some tokens, but 0.5% compared to the 25% take rate you'd see on a secondary today is nothing. No reason to switch over in the first place. And even if you do get people to switch over to this system, you as the protocol or the marketplace are seeing enough competition that fewer people are paying fees. The fees they're paying are less. So where's the reason in creating this in the first place? And if we look at our actual composition of traders, in the Blur case, for example, I had seen like 250 users doing like half of the volume. So who are these characters in the ticketing space? They're the exact kind of unscrupulous brokers and bots that you would want to be cutting out, which means you're putting them on steroids. Very dangerous. So in conclusion, a honeypot or Tarpit. I think NFT ticketing is only a honeypot if you can solve for a couple things. The most important, and every ticketing platform has to do this, is get access to inventory. And the tough part for NFT ticketing in particular is you need access to inventory where that value prop is strong. The second, an accessible wallet UX, one that actually is self-custodial so you can access those secondary marketplaces to get the benefit of relisting your ticket or snapping one up. I think we're still about 1.5 years away from that. And finally, the incentives have to be aligned at the marketplace level. So open marketplace that caters to collectors and traders won't work for ticketing. There has to be a separate standard. And even if you think about buying a ticket, you want to know what the view from your seat looks like. So it doesn't make sense to just have a JPEG. All this to say, I'm a believer, and we're building infrastructure for it, but it's a very difficult problem, fun one to solve. But thank you.